Good morning, everybody, on this Christmas Eve. We are happy to see you. I'm Tex Homer. That's Paul Wadlington. This is brought to you by Academy Sports. And guess what, Paul? And outdoors. All right, we are going to talk Muschamp mania. People can't get enough of it. And then the effects of a strange playoffs so far and what that means. Hopefully, if any lessons are learned, I doubt it. But first, I want you guys to head over to Inside Texas. You can join for $1. Incredible Christmas gift for somebody, if I do say so myself. We would love to see you over there. Active board, both in the community response and, of course, our writers dropping stuff on the regular. All right. Good morning to everybody. Good morning. Paul, we get news. I see it on my phone. I just see PK's out first. I don't see Muschamp hired. I did see that part. So what's your first thought? You've had your thoughts about the PK defense. You've probably been one of the more stronger advocates of being like, I don't know about this. So what were your just first thoughts there with PK? And then we'll go into what Muschamp adds.
So I promise I'll get to the topic. This is my lengthy meandering metaphor. So in physics, there's an idea of elegance of an equation or of explaining a physical law. And the idea of elegance is not that it has a chandelier on it. Connor, I know that you think that's the most elegant thing possible.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I think is like classy or elegant?
What?
Blue toilet water.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Like if I came to your place and I knew there was blue toilet water, I'd be like, yeah, these are classy people.
Yeah, exactly. But, I agree.
The idea is that it's simple, right? And it expresses something deep in a very straightforward way. It's not the formula that fills up 9 chalkboards. It's E equals MC squared, right?
It's one of my favorite formulas.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Also, baby formula is one of your favorite formulas.
Pretty good.
But the idea of elegance is that you're expressing something in a very straightforward way. And one thing about the PK thing is that it was inelegant. It was not elegant because I knew, and you could see, that it was clear historically and at Texas that PK needed someone to tie up the back end to be a fully effective defensive coordinator, right? You had to go through a lot of contortions and combinations and alchemical combinations to get to a final end product of a defense. In that sense, he was never a true soup to nuts defensive coordinator. Whether at Washington, because he had Jimmy Lake, or at Texas, when we had to bring in Gary Patterson to teach him quarters, etc. Doesn't mean PK is not a great guy. Doesn't mean he's not a great coach. But if he didn't have someone to set the back end, we were incomplete. We were inelegant, right? Will Muschamp was an attempt by Steve Sarkisian to go get a guy who handles every aspect of the defense. And I don't just mean setting the scheme, but player evaluation, coach evaluation, positional coach evaluation. And then the other part is that you have to look at PK's lack of a Rolodex to, if he was a guy who's like, all right, this is kind of what I prefer to do. I prefer to look at the front. I prefer to teach basic football. I want to coach the positions. And that's all good. It's important. Here's my 6 guys, my acolytes who will set the back end. And whenever they're available, you just bring them in and we'll be fine. We'll be seamless. But he didn't have that. So we were constantly trying to bring in different combinations and see, like, would this work with you? And I know in a sense, people were like, well, Sark was forcing this, right? He was forcing these hires. Well, PK wasn't making the hires. He wasn't saying, hey, go get one of these 3 guys and we'll be set, coach. He was saying, I don't know, go get someone to set the back end. I can work with anyone, right? But that's not what Sark wants. What Sark wants is a guy who says, I am the head coach of the defense. I'm going to evaluate players. I'm going to set the scheme soup to nuts, front, middle, and back, and actually back forwards, right? That's how scheme is set nowadays. It's back forwards, right? And then I'm going to evaluate all the coaches. And by the way, I've got 17 coaches at every position that I know would work with what I teach and what I do. And that's Will Muschamp. So that's why he hired Will Muschamp. And people say, in terms of like the ordered substance of who we've got to replace, position coach or even coordinator level, hey man, PK is not high on that list. We're okay, you know. But the point was, when you've got someone available and you can upgrade. And that's what we did. So it's not, knocking PK. It's just saying he was inherently limited. And, I kind of made the analogy in my piece reacting to this about the Gordian knot, the legend of the Gordian knot. And so the idea is that there's this knot that had been where you tie up your cart. And over the years, people had been tying ropes to this knot, the existing knot. And eventually it had become this massive puzzle, right? And the idea was that whoever could tease out the Gordian knot was a great man and destined for conquering the world. And so people would go there and puzzle over this knot and spend hours teasing on the threads and pulling, trying to make it work. And Alexander the Great rolls up, looks at it, pulls out his sword and hacks it in half and says, problem solved. Half the people are like, that's cheating. And the other half the people are like, oh. And I think this was kind of cutting the Gordian knot. Why are we spending every offseason trying to tease on this problem, this puzzle of how we can get someone complimentary to PK when we could just walk up and hack it in half? And that's what we did. And that's what this hire is ultimately.
Yeah. And you would have wished two things when I think the Muschamp hire. PK doesn't have an established system, meaning that it's not a known system, defensive system, that he has trees or he comes from a major tree. AKA Muschamp, when he's going to hire guys, he knows exactly who he wants to hire because they're people that are from the Saban system, right? People that teach that. So that helps immediately because you can plug and play a lot of these guys from around college football because it's really big. PK didn't really have that. He kind of developed his own thing in tandem with other people. And then as far as Sark hiring, even if Sark was, hey, you must hire this guy, you still want the DC that's going to be like, I don't want to hire that guy. I want to hire this guy,
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, frankly, like if Dwayne Akina came into Will Muschamp's room and started barking out bad ideas, after a certain point, Muschamp would say, hey, we're good on ideas. Yeah. I've got this covered, buddy. Like, why don't you go coach up the safeties?
Yeah. Well, and you're doomed to fail eventually, right? If you're constantly every other year having to come up and solve this equation, you're going to get it wrong eventually. And they got it wrong this year.
Yeah. Bobby Betronic says it's like Indiana Jones pulling the revolver on the swordsman. That's exactly right. It's simplicity, right? It's not trying to go through these contortions of trying to solve something every time. It's making the elegant solve, which is, hey, I'm going to pull out my revolver and shoot this guy. Why would I pull out a sword against a swordsman? Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the hire ultimately is. And then really Sark is just going to tell Muschamp, you're the head coach of the defense, run the show. That's also going to have some trickle down effects in other areas of our program. So I think Muschamp's got ideas about a lot of stuff, and it's going to be helpful and beneficial for us, including strength and conditioning, including some other things. So I think it's going to be a good thing. I'm really glad to have Will Muschamp back. We are going to tape a deep dive right after this in which we talk about Muschamp and we talk a little bit about his history, because I know some Horn fans have either forgotten, it gets hazy, or they never knew, Will Muschamp was here. I started watching Texas football in 2011. What's this deal? So we're going to review a lot of that stuff. And we're going to talk about how his philosophy defensively has shifted over the years, working with the Kirby Smart tree.
And that'll be fun because I'm kind of that generation. I knew Will Muschamp was here, but I didn't know a defensive coordinator. I'd be like, what does the defensive coordinator do? I'm like, they coordinate the defense. That's all I would have had. I'm like, he's exciting on the sidelines, but I didn't understand football at all.
Well, if you search him up, what you get is the maniac on the sidelines or the guy breaking whiteboards. And the truth is, Muschamp is one of the best teachers in college football.
So it's like you watch him on podcasts, he's kind of a nerd. And I've said this, people don't know this. The Saban tree, they're nerds. If you look at this system, they have 700 pages. These guys are football nerds. And so when you talk to him and tell him to break down stuff, and he's also been an awesome recruiter for Georgia. I think I said this yesterday, but a big factor of why he wanted to kind of stay in the orbit, even when he wasn't when he wanted to be with his family, is because he's like, look, I want to see Jalen Walker and these guys Michael Williams, these guys are that he recruited. And so it's even though they weren't safeties, right? He's a safeties coach, but he had a lot to do with the Georgia defense. And when he told Kirby from that podcast, hey, I want to go watch my kid. I haven't really spent time with my family. Kirby's like, no, I want to keep you on because I want you to game plan. I'll get you to the football games. I'll get you a plane. You can go leave on Thursday. You don't have to be here for game day. I want you to keep your recruiting relationships. I want you to plot on teams and all of that stuff. So Kirby basically said no when he was like, I want to go spend time with my family. He's like, I'll make sure you spend time with your family, but I want you around when you can be around. And that's
and let's talk about this. So there's a big debate on sort of Georgia boards of what Muschamp actually did, etc. And I have a decent source with Georgia that's pretty in the know. And this kind of this reflects what you just said, Connor, which is like, this is an assistant coach, an analyst that Georgia was willing to like get a charter plane for, right? Like, so what Muschamp was, one is they would use him as a recruiter for key guys. Muschamp is a really good recruiter when he's fired up about a dude. And if you see Muschamp interviewed, what's great about him is his sincerity. He's just like, what you see is what you get. He's just, I think he really goes over well with parents, especially moms, right? And I think he can get into a player's head and like sell him on everything of playing in this system and how he's going to prepare him and make him better. But he sells him the idea of, if you come here, it's going to be hard. I don't know if you're up for that challenge.
Right.
Right.
Psychological.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
So I had a neighbor that was, he is and was a Green Beret. And there was a neighborhood teenager that was like, I want to be a Green Beret. You know, what should I do? And he's just like, nah, you're not good enough for it. And then if the kid showed up the next day, he's like, I'll help you out. If he didn't show up the next day, he's like, you wouldn't have made it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So Muschamp has that sort of sell. And if he has a specific player he's fired up about, he's a really good recruiter. And then the second part was Muschamp was Mr. Special Projects. And what that means is Georgia had been game planning Texas last year and this year months out. And it wasn't Kirby Smart necessarily. It was Will Muschamp. So Kirby
heard that too. I heard that he had an extra hand in game planning Texas as well. And I was like, no wonder Sark wanted him. But first question, if we get availability, I'm like, why'd you do us like that, man?
Yeah, because Muschamp, I mean, if you guys didn't notice, he got into our offenses and Sark's head in some pretty serious ways. And he was doing effectively what they call advanced scouting. Now, everybody does that, right? But Muschamp is doing it at a much higher level than your GA, who does advanced scouting. Right. And Muschamp has had all sorts of deconstructions of the Texas offense at every level that you could see on game day. Let's just leave it at that. And that's what he was doing for Georgia. And it wasn't just Texas. There was a couple of other schools that he was assigned to, and you could see it in their game plans. That Alabama SEC title game, Will Muschamp had his fingerprints all over that.
So in 2023, we are doing a defensive film study on the 2023 Georgia-Bama game because I got told, hey, look at that game.
This is Muschamp's baby.
Yeah. And so, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you heard the same things I heard. And so, yeah, I heard a little bit of sour milk that he was just a safeties coach, real good safeties coach. But then I would hear from other people. I probably talked to 3 people that and 2 others were kind of sour milky. But a lot of them were like, look, man, it's and then someone said too, they were like, look, Muschamp is the 3rd best defensive coordinator on Georgia's staff. Kirby, Schumann, Muschamp. He's still a top 5 defensive coordinator in the country.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's what I heard that I thought kind of stuck out to me. And also just to take one more mind out of that room, they have one of the most incredible group of defensive minds. But yeah, the holistic approach, the safeties loved him. The safeties played great. A lot of the guys he talks about recruiting are not safeties, not his position. He's recruiting the whole defense. The Saban system, which is has incredible scope. He's going to be able to teach that. It's a man-match system a lot of the times, right? So you're not getting these gaping holes in the defense because they're running towards their leverage. So you will see tighter. It doesn't mean press. Guys, it doesn't mean press. That most of the time they actually don't teach. Like if you look at the playbooks, they're not telling them to press in some situations. So that's not what we mean. But I do mean that they're not just going to let you run into the middle of the field. They're going to match you if you come into that area. So there's a lot of great stuff there. And like I said, it's easy to hire coaches from that tree because you already have a subset of people that know this. So if you lose a coach, that's fine. You're not going to have to teach a coach the Saban system. So he's teaching a player something he barely knows. So that's important too for schematic consistency in coaching.
Well, and talk about time as a flat circle. Do you remember who Will Muschamp came in to fix the botched defense from the prior year at Texas?
The Akina.
That was the 1 year of Dwayne Akina as our DC.
Yeah.
And so, spoiler alert, every time Dwayne Akina has been singular, the DC at any school, whether it's Arizona or Texas, he's botched it. And Muschamp was brought in to fix it. And he fixed it right away. And then 2009, the next year, that was one of the best Texas defenses in Texas football history. So, he's a really good coach. However, and we're going to have a long offseason to talk about this, Connor. So spoiler alert, and we'll do most of this on the deep dive. He has changed and evolved schematically. And I do think that he's going to have some interesting philosophies here at Texas. I don't think he's going to go all pure Georgia.
Right.
But I think he's got a lot of skins on the wall. And I know other thing people are like, well, he didn't make it as a head coach. Don't care. Irrelevant. Like, that's a different skill set. It's a different situation. And also, I would love to get his candid opinion of Florida when he took over, because people forget that's when Urban Meyer faked like a brain cloud so he could get out of that program. They'd had 39 arrests. They had an actual serial killer
documentary they did and didn't give you the goods at all. I was like, what is the point of this documentary? It's just like a Florida propaganda. You didn't even talk about the interesting parts of that team.
Well, they had an actual serial killer on the roster. When Muschamp took over, I think he didn't quite fully realize how bad that locker room was. And Muschamp he's not a guy that's going to put up with nonsense. And so he got rid of a bunch of guys and had the turnover at Florida was remarkable. And ultimately, he didn't succeed at either Florida or South Carolina. But again, totally irrelevant to what we're tasking him with at Texas.
Yeah, people asking about the fronts. So they're going to be multiple. So it's funny because we'll talk about Georgia. We'll be like the mint front, which is their 3 down. We'll be like, they'll play a lot of mint front. It still comes out to be 60-40, 40-60. Depending on the year. So there's going to be 4 down and there's going to be 3 down.
We're going to see a lot more 3 down.
Yeah, we're going to see more 3 down. And it's just, but the point of the Saban system is that you can do everything. That's why it's incredible, because there's an answer in every single thing. So you're going to, and it's so game plan specific. And so it matters on the opponent, what the quarterback's doing, what route distributions, what do they like to do in this? What are their run concept? Then they'll start to take their big book of plays and break it down. So it's not PK where we would spend an hour on deep dive being like, well, versus TCU.
Here's what I would do. And then he'd just roll out his defense.
Yeah, and it'd just be the same defense. And it worked a lot of the times, but that's not Saban's tree. They are going to game plan you specifically. And you've seen that as a Texas fan. Whenever you played Georgia, you would try to scout them ahead of time, and you'd be like, Georgia's not even looking that great. And then they'd come out with this stuff versus Texas. I was rewatching Georgia versus Texas game 1 last year, and with new eyes, looking at the Georgia playbook that I have now. And man, that was frustrating. And they didn't show a lot of that. And it's basically they want to get the linebackers on the running backs. And if they can do that, they're going to destroy you. And so it's just all games on how can they get Texas protection to put the linebacker. And at first they wanted big bodies in the middle. Then they said, screw that. We're just putting backers mugged in the A. The center is going to have to pick one. That's going to force the linebacker to the other one. And they just schemed us up. But that's the thing. You're not going to see is this a 4-down team or a 3-down team? It's who are we playing? What do they do? And then they'll select what we're going to do from that.
Well, I want to get to Sugar Papi Chulo's super chat here in a moment. You can always count on Sugar Daddy to have a variety of cognomens, nicknames. But I can tell you the impetus for the Saban system developing that soup to nuts playbook, which was the widespread evolution of the spread. So I was there and I saw it in person, but the old Saban defense was just the Patriot system. And you're talking about kind of a 3-4 where your two outside linebackers weigh 260. Mm-hmm. Your inside linebackers weigh 250 plus. Your strong safety weighs 230, 225, Mark Barron, right? And what you realized and you saw in 2009 when they matched up with Texas is they were not well suited to stop the spread. And you saw that at other times. Remember when Alabama played Utah in a bowl and they encountered like one of the early spread varieties and they got lit up.
Clemson too.
And so Saban, to his credit, said, I got to change everything. I got to change my personnel. I got to get answers to this because the prior SEC, the SEC is now at the cutting edge of X's and O's. The SEC used to always be a step behind in innovation.
The talent league, like line up. We're going to.
It was a line up and let's beat them. We're going to run a pro offense and whatever, right? Yeah. And Saban feasted on that. But once he started encountering these spreads, and yes, if Colt McCoy hadn't been hurt, we would have lit up Alabama on offense. But also, don't run your quarterback on the goal line at Marcel Darius. We deserve to lose the game. But that expansive playbook, if they do this, we do this, that evolved from their encounters with college football and the spread. It didn't come from the NFL. It didn't come from a naturalistic process. It came from being forced of like, oh, crap, these spread teams are lighting up our 225-pound strong safety and our 250-pound inside linebackers in one-on-one, right? We've got to have an evolution. And so he evolved the personnel. Suddenly, Alabama's linebackers weigh 225 and they can run, right? Suddenly their safeties are 190, right? But also they had to evolve stylistically and in terms of X's and O's. And that's when that playbook started to go to like, if they do this, we do this. It's like this algorithm. And that's when the extra parts of the algorithm got added. And it's continued onwards because people are like, all right, well, we're going to go, trips on the wide side, and we're going to go tight end down on the other side, and we're going to run crossers. And this is going to defeat what you're trying to do here. And then Georgia, Alabama, that whole coaching tree goes, okay, if they line up this way, this is what we do. And now they've just got this soup to nuts algorithm.
It's remarkable. They have an answer for everything.
And here's the thing that trips them up is extreme offenses.
Yeah.
Rod Babers talks about this. Like offensive extremes will test defenses because they're so used to playing sort of offenses within a certain range of personnel or approach. So if you'll remember, Georgia Southern back in the day lit up Alabama. And Saban has a famous rant about this. He's like, Georgia Southern came in here and we had a defense with 9 guys that went to the NFL and they went through our ass like shit through a goose. And like, and they were, Georgia Southern had this crazy balls to the wall, pure option running attack. And they ran all over Alabama. Now, of course, they still lost the game by 30, whatever. But that's the thing that still gives them a challenge. So
you get good at, and Kirby says it in his one of his clinics. He's like, you get good at what you see.
Yes.
And so he's like, so now we're good against the spread. 11 personnel Y off, which is, a Sark kind of staple. And Sark goes 12, but not this year. He's like, that's what they can defend now. But anytime you're right, anytime you go to extremes, that's where you're going to get tested. I want to hit this question.
Let's do it.
Do y'all think he still brings the boom? He looks like a grandpa on that podcast a few months ago. First off, all those coaches are bookish. If you watch Saban and Kirby in their clinics with their little glasses in their office, they all kind of they're very similar human beings. And on the field, they're nuts. Here's what I can show you. PK is 59 years old. Will Muschamp is 54. And it doesn't feel like that for whatever reason, but Muschamp's 54, guys. Like he's good. This is not, I said it yesterday, this is not an Akina return to glory hire. Isn't that cool? Muschamp is still ready to go. And yeah, on podcasts, why is he going to be a psycho on a podcast? He's just sitting in his office. So it'd be even weirder if he
boom.
But yeah, I think he still does bring the boom there for the culture hire aspect of that. Before we keep going, Paul, I want to hit academy, but I do want to talk about continue kind of how the system's adapted and how adaptable these guys are, because I think that's a really important feature of what they do well. But first, let me find this here ad read. The holiday season is here, and Academy Sports and Outdoors has the legendary gifts you need at undefeatable prices every day. Shop in store or online at academy.com to save on gifts on everybody's list. From football jerseys and basketball hoops to fire pits and deer stands, the most wonderful time of the year happens right here. This Christmas, give the gift of fun from Academy Sports and Outdoors. All righty. So, if you watch the mint front, which is a variation of the tight front, which is a 3 down that Dave Aranda is known for, people should know the story by now. They get taught it by Todd Orlando because it got used against Georgia. So you would think these guys would probably be arrogant schematically, right? They're from the Saban tree. Our teams win. They don't do that. When a team beats them with something, they will go meet with the coaches. Now they won't. If you're in the SEC, they won't. But if it's a random bowl game you caught them on, or a non-con or something like that, where they're not going to face you a bunch, they go and meet. They went and met with Herman. They asked Herman, why did you cook us at Ohio State? He's like, well, because in this version of man, your rules are I play outside leverage. Okay, our slants are there all day. So here's the downside of the Saban system. It's so well known and it's so rule-based, a good offensive coordinator will go and learn the system, and then he will learn how to break it. And so every time it gets broken, they go, okay, how did you do that? And they basically said, we just learned your defense. And then they start formulating defenses within the defense to answer their answer.
So if you've ever heard Sark, don't run Tampa 2 against Steve Sarkisian, because Monty Kiffin, the progenitor, the creator of the Tampa 2 defense, Lane Kiffin's dad. So Monty Kiffin is a very famous defensive coordinator in the NFL. And ultimately helped basically lead the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to that Super Bowl, right? Running the Tampa 2. Sark knows that system literally backwards and forwards because he was taught it by Monty Kiffin. He and Lane would sit there and be like, Dad, how do you do this? Or what if we do this? And he's like, well, this is what I do. So Sark is like, please, God, run Tampa 2 against me. Yeah. And it's similar to that, what you're saying with the Saban tree, right? So it's because it's well known, you continue to have to evolve and have little countermeasures, right? And also, it's one thing as a coach to know something. It's another thing to impart information or have players able to do something about it in the game. Those are very different things. This probably won't shock you guys, but right before the snap, most coaches on the sideline have a pretty good idea of what play is coming. Doesn't really matter. Your players still have to. I mean, it's what your players know. It's not what you know sitting back at home on your watching television or standing on the sideline, right? And that's one of the reasons also for the hurry up, because I used to call it brain transplants. Saban and also LSU Muschamp, when he was at LSU, they were really good at recognizing formations and then signaling in a quick counter right before the snap. Brent Venables is excellent at this, by the way. One of the reasons you go hurry up against those guys is to take away the brain transplant. That's what I call it, which is the coach transplanting his brain onto the defense. And you'll see times, as great as Alabama's juggernaut was, when teams sped them up and Saban couldn't get his transplant in, whether it was against Auburn or even A&M with Manziel, whatever, you could see them falling apart because they're used to having the coaches tell them right before the snap, this is what they're doing. And so that's another part of it. And that's the fun part of all this chess game, of coaching college football. So,
well, if you watch the beginning of Georgia Texas 1 last year, when Sark's like going through his opening script, he knows the scheme. Yeah. Like what he's doing is trying to break it. It doesn't matter. Jalen Walker's fast. And so like that was a huge thing too, is like, even though schematically this play should have yielded trouble for whatever defense they were in, Georgia was playing so hair on fire and so physically dominant, it didn't matter. And that's what I noticed was the real difference there. Or even the interception on Quinn, where it looks like the corner is going to play man off and run off, and then he turns and clouds and he gets the interception. All that stuff, it's like, oh, okay, that's this play. Like when you have the game, and so they were out coaching, but really too, you saw Sark trying to break the scheme. It didn't matter because we just weren't prepared offensively enough to play with that physicality or have those horses necessarily. So that was the big factor. And so I don't think there's any question on Sark taking Muschamp as a top 5 DC in mind, but also a DC that planned really well against him in particular, and then also knows how those conversations occur in those rooms and the processes. He can say, look, man, we know what you're doing because of X, Y, Z. We think your weaknesses are here. Clearly, the weaknesses they found, they said your interior is slow. So instead of doing big guys bullying them, which we can do, we're going to put backers on the interior and we're just going to run around you. And so there's all of those things. That's a very illuminating for a coordinator to know what they think of you in a very honest way.
Well, if you follow the UFC very frequently, and this is distinct from boxing, at the end of a fight where a guy catches somebody in something, you'll see them shake hands, and then the guy will show his opponent, this is what I caught you in. You ever seen that, Connor?
Yeah.
Like that happens all the time in the UFC. Doesn't happen in boxing, but I think there's a similar mentality in football where the Kirby Smarts, part of the reason they're successful is there's some humbleness beneath all the bravado.
Yeah.
Which is, dude, they lit our ass up. I want to talk to this guy. I'm kind of excited. Like, what did they do? Right.
Yeah.
And that sort of being able to humble yourself and not think that you have the answer to it all is really key in evolving.
And they don't. Every one of their clinics is talking about some defensive innovation because they're on the cutting edge. And it's always, they start with the tape of like, we were getting our ass kicked at this. We didn't have an answer for this. And they're like, look, we know we have the athlete advantage, all that. It's like, it doesn't matter. We weren't coaching well enough. And then they go into, and then we created this incredible system.
Yeah.
But they're far more humble than you realize and honest with themselves of like, man, we suck at coaching. What is going on here? And I'm always surprised when I listen to anyone from the Saban tree, how clear-minded they are and honest with themselves.
So let's talk about the antithesis of that, Connor. Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons I said, hey, man, when they hired Mike Elko, I was like, hey, say whatever you want. That's a real football coach.
Yep.
Jimbo Fisher had made himself a dinosaur. And it was because he refused to evolve and because he decided that his system was perfection. His system was flawless. It had an answer to everything in his mind on the sideline.
Yep.
The players were screwing him over. That's what Jimbo Fisher decided at Florida State when they started to fall apart. And then A&M gave him this lifeline as he was failing at Florida State. And then he brought that same mentality to A&M. And I used to always point out in his post games, every Jimbo Fisher post game was the same. Well, we come out there in the first half, we have opening drive, we got blah, 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 and we know they're running cover 3, and we just didn't execute. Players didn't execute. We had this, and he didn't see it. And it's a long thing of like, I have a perfected system. We had all the counter punches to what they're doing. The players screwed me again. And that was the Jimbo Fisher post game in every freaking Aggie game that they lost. And their offense got dominated, right? And you realize after a while, this is a guy who is like without flaw. Like, I must confess it's not my fault, right? That's his attitude about everything. And you could see ultimately it didn't matter how many 5-stars they signed or how they jacked up their recruiting rankings. It was all going to fail because at a fundamental level, he was dishonest with himself. And he didn't understand that people had more than caught up to his offense and that his quarterbacks, he was actually turning them into robots, right? Not football players. So I just think that's the counterpoint. That's the cautionary tale of a guy who was once very relevant at Florida State and his system. And even before that at LSU, it gets adjusted to, and he couldn't look in the mirror and say, they've caught up to me. I need to evolve. He said, well, my players are screwing me now.
Well, you could be theoretically, you could have the perfect on paper system.
Yeah.
You could have every single answer and it's technically true.
It's what your players can execute.
Correct. If you cannot impart your wisdom, Saban said his coaching hires are, what's your character, number 1? Number 2, what's your knowledge? Number 3, can you impart the knowledge? And so it's like, look, he couldn't impart the knowledge. Maybe the system is incredible. Maybe it does have an answer for everything. It does not matter. If you're not calling it at the right time and your players can't execute it. That's what I think is interesting about the Saban world is those guys we think of them as like kind of Southern hotheads, but they're intellectual. They're very honest with themselves and they pride themselves on being effective teachers. And Muschamp, when you hear him talk, he talks constantly about being a teacher. I think his dad was a principal or something like that. I can't
His
remember.
dad was a lifetime educator. And
yeah, and so he prides himself in being able to teach. And you'll hear when they talk about Muschamp that he's an effective teacher of the system. It's not right now. I have Saban's system, guys. I have it on paper, right? I have it in a playbook. Let's go see me call Saban's system. It's going to be a nightmare. They're going to score 500 on me. It's not enough to have the paper. You have to be able to teach and actually understand what's going on, and that's the difference.
If you were on the sideline, would you bring your giant stuffed panda lovey/furry that's sitting in the corner behind you?
Hey, let's not talk about that. That's something from my personal life that I don't really like to get into, guys. I think
All right.
you guys like it though. Let's see. It's a panda, dude.
Oh, it's pink.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh,
I think my wife won it at a fair, and we didn't have a proper placement, so that's where it lives. If y'all want to name it, actually, I'm not going to let y'all name it. You're going to name it something weird. But yeah, he lives right there.
Yeah, sugar daddy. Your job is to name the panda
with a name we can say on camera. That'll be the big factor. Okay. Any other things about Muschamp before we go into a good 20 minutes of gloating about the playoffs?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, cool. First, do you want to tell him the greatest mortgage man that's ever existed?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the greatest mortgage man. Chat, who is that man? You should be trained by now. His name is Gabe Winslow. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. Hey, you know what? Gabe is a broker. He doesn't work for a bank. He doesn't keep bankers' hours. He doesn't work at Chase or Wells or Citibank, and he's not rolling in at 10 and leaving at 2 after a 2-hour lunch. This guy works his butt off, and he's going to work all Christmas break. So if you're out looking for houses or you need to refi, mortgage rates and interest rates are going down, give him a call. He can refi you for free. Or if you want to get a house, the house of your dreams, start looking this Christmas, get pre-qualified. Call Gabe right now, 832-557-1095. If you called him on Christmas Day, he will pick up the phone and help you out. I don't recommend doing that. It's not a great idea.
He's cool, but he would.
But he would do it. And he'd probably tell his wife, like mid-conversation, like, shh, got a customer. And he'd go walk into another room. Panda Wadlington. Wow, that's tough. We're not going to name the bear that. But anyway, this working with mortgage guys can be a bear. If you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. That's Gabe Winslow. You can reach him at 832-557-1095.
All right.
Panda Chulo, says Poppy.
All right. Playoffs went, I thought the playoffs sucked. And then the first round, I said, this might be the greatest playoffs I've seen. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the system. I think we can continue this exactly as it is. But what were your thoughts, Paul? I know you got good ones.
It is not enough that we succeed. Our enemies must also fail.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't fully on board with your thing, which was I'm glad we're not in the playoffs. Let's fix all this crap and come out in 2026.
Well, the irony is if we would have lost in the first round, we would have been done sooner.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. But we wouldn't have lost in the first round.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the takeaway. If we'd rematched with the OU or A&M, we would have had the same result or actually increased our margin. Those are just very flawed teams. And unfortunately, Texas left a lot of breadcrumbs for Miami against A&M. And they, to the best of their ability, followed that game plan. They did a very good job on defense of perfecting what Texas had showed. On offense, against their best efforts, they finally just handed the ball off to Fletcher up the middle on duo.
Yeah, they can't fit gaps. We showed you that they're not.
We showed you they can't fit gaps. We showed you that their linebackers are 5'10", 220. Yeah. And if they can't shoot the gap and you can get a big on them, the guy's done, right? And that's what Miami finally did. But it felt like Shannon Dawson, the Miami offensive coordinator, he kept making the counter call before A&M had made the counter. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it drives me crazy. As an OC, hey, all of you OCs, write this down. Play checkers until they make you play chess.
Yeah.
Play checkers. If the guy's in front of you, jump them. Don't play chess until they make the adjustment. And Miami was determined to make the adjustment before A&M had made the adjustment. And then finally in that last drive, they're like, we're averaging 15 yards a carry on duo. Should we run duo? Oh yeah. We're still averaging 15 yards a carry. Maybe we should have done that all game.
They
So
kept running outside. Everything was like angled towards the sideline.
well, they run a trick play.
I know, and I'm just like, hey man, just go make them be sound. They're not fundamentally sound. So test the fundamentals, not the scheme stuff.
So Fletcher finished with 17 carries for 172 yards. On duo, just duo, he had 10 carries for 147 yards. If they had just handed the ball off to Mark Fletcher, I think he could have realistically had a 250, 260 yard day. I mean, and they would have won by margin despite Mario Cristobal's best efforts with the play clock and everything else. So anyway, I thought that was instructive. And then on defense, keep him in the pocket. No edge goes further than Reed. Make him reset left.
Yep.
Both of his interceptions, reset left.
Yep.
I mean, it's just by now the book is out. And there's nothing A&M can do about it until they start to evolve as an offense. I'm not sure Holman Wiggins is the guy to do that. So we're going to see some interesting stuff. And Marcel Reed is really tough because people are like, he sucks. He's like, no, the problem is he doesn't suck.
That'd be easy.
That would be easy. Out.
He's doing just enough. He's showing just enough.
Yeah.
And you're like,
if he sucked, you'd be like, afuera, out of here. We're hitting the portal. The problem is there's not a clear upgrade in the portal. And so that is the conundrum of both Reed and John Mateer for OU, which is they're good, but they've got these built-in weaknesses that they can't sort of get away from. And that's the real challenge for the old coaching adage of he's good enough to get you beat.
Yep.
That's these guys. And I'm actually more open-minded about Mateer just because his supporting cast is not good. Whereas Marcel Reed's supporting cast is pretty good.
Well, I remember arguing with A&M fans before we played them because we were on it that week, man. We were calling it out because all of them were like, he's a Heisman. There was the fun is who's better, Archer or Marcel. They haven't responded since, but we're like, make him play quarterback, guys. He's a beneficiary of a really solid system with a solid cast. Mateer's the opposite. Mateer is having to try to make everything work. What disappoints me about Mateer and college coaching in general, that guy is so undisciplined. He does the dumbest stuff for no reason. He leaves his feet for no reason. He sidearms for no reason. Hey, man, coach that guy. Get that out of him. Like, he's not going to go to the NFL doing this stuff. And it's like, and you see at the beginning of the year, there's the huge segment of national media that are only ceiling chasers. They just notice the cool play he does complete, and they love that style. Those are the guys that will tell you they love Lenora Sellers, they love Mateer, they love Marcel, right? But that stuff doesn't work once you get against good competition. They can just tell him to set his feet and quit with the cool guy, unnecessary stuff. He could be a player. He has the requisite arm talent. He definitely has the mobility to be exciting, but that guy's floor is at the bottom. He needs to be a quarterback and he'll be better. But I don't know. Coaches aren't coaching this stuff out of them anymore. It's annoying.
In his defense, and it's a limited defense for Mateer, when he drops back, there's not like a lot of stuff open.
And you're right. There is a lot of incentive for him to start doing this wild stuff too. But even when it's not there, he does it. And so it's like, hey man, that worked at the lower ranks, that worked in high school, all of that stuff. And it'll work against a good bulk of your schedule. It will not work when you get to the top of competition. Those guys are more sound. So that's going to be the big thing. I wonder with them next year how they'll look. Because A&M's losing a lot. OU has the potential to return a lot. So
I think OU's O-line could be good next year.
Yeah. So it's like there should be two differences. I think A&M's, unless the portal goes great or just the maturation of Elko's guys really kicking in. But on paper right now, OU should actually trend up and A&M should trend down. We just have to see it all. It's never that clear, but that's something that I'm watching for that's going to be big.
Hey, let me ask you and the chat, what do we guys think about DeAndre Moore leaving?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
So DeAndre wants to be paid more in a potential final year. Texas, which is fine. And DeAndre's negotiated every year. He negotiated to Louisville to us and then prior. that's fine as long as the production matches that. I'm a little bit more sympathetic to Moore because, like I said, Arch couldn't put it in his hands for the whole first half of the season. He was bouncing it off the turf. So it wasn't just purely like Moore couldn't do it. The first half of the season, Arch was struggling to connect with him. But if you want more money, and we know right now I can take your base salary plus what your raise will be and go and get a receiver that can potentially give me more, I'm going to do that. He's never had a stellar season, and that's a factor. So at first it was kind of like he's going to portal. Then it was NFL. I was like, well, what's his grade in the NFL? I mean, he has no real tape. So you just be going off athletic profile. So sure enough, he's going to hit the portal. I think that makes sense. Go cherry pick a school that loves your position, and go somewhere where you don't have guys that the school thinks are better than you and want to see higher than you, like Texas does, right? Pick somewhere that's going to be like, DeAndre Moore, you're our number one, and it's a passing offense, and we're going to feed you the ball, and we're going to pay you more.
You should maybe go to Cal.
Is that their offense? I don't know their offense.
Well, I mean, Saga Putele is returning the quarterback at Cal.
Yeah, but exactly. Cherry pick
the guy
exactly
at a P4 but lower tier P4 school.
Correct. Good tape.
He'll be the man in the ACC.
Yeah. Good enough tape to evaluate for NFL guys. Make sure you get prioritized, and you get paid more. I think that's a smarter decision than just returning to Texas. Because let's be frank, nobody is talking about next year. Like, what if Moore takes that leap? It's all, what if X guy besides Moore takes that leap? You want to be the number one wherever you go.
So switching gears, I agree with you 100% on everything you said. So switching gears slightly back to the playoff. Of the teams that played that last weekend, which teams would you think, all right, if Texas is playing this team, maybe even going to their home field, this would be a really tough game. I'm not sure about the outcome. How many of those teams would that have been the case? I'm going to say OU no, A&M no, and Alabama no. I think we'd whip Alabama, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, JMU, tough out.
Yeah, Tulane. I'd say Oregon and maybe Ole Miss if you kind of squint right. I think Trinidad Chambliss is a disruptive college quarterback.
Yeah, but all those guys, exactly. Even the ones that you have to think about, they're coin flippy. None of them are like, Texas can't get that done. It doesn't feel like you're going to go face Ohio State or whatever, or Georgia again.
When Oregon, you see the athletes, but you see the holes in their X's and O's sometimes, or like their, I mean, this is going to sound so hokey, but like grit. Like sometimes their defensive line, like this guy's got an NFL future and he's a 5-star. And then you watch them play and they're kind of like not about it, right? Like Indiana revealed that about Oregon.
Well, Oregon's one of
their speed is terrifying
right now.
I mean, their speed is so terrifying on offense, right?
Yeah, with our secondary. There's some coin flips, but there's no one in the first round that I'm like Texas would run into a matchup that's just no shot or likely to be no shot.
Yeah, and I think several of those games I would feel like very confident.
But it's also too, it's like, well, Oregon playing their A+ versus Texas playing their A+. Because my problem with Texas is consistencies, right? So it's like I have to think about it. If both teams play perfect, who wins? Because I can't account for if someone doesn't show up. But
and ultimately, we could do them what might have been. And so I didn't buy into the whole. So I saw the vulnerability of some of the playoff being if there's an upset on one side of the bracket, because everyone has Ohio State and Georgia on an inevitable collision course, right? If there's an upset on one side of that bracket, stuff gets real interesting for every team on the field, right?
Yeah.
Because even if you're inferior, if you could play for the national title, that's a good thing, right? Like there's upsets happen in sports. That was the thing that was like, and I'm usually very cynical and sort of clear-headed about Texas, but what I saw against A&M, I was like, are we finally getting it? Yeah. But ultimately, I think you're right. We need the offseason to like just get our stuff together. And we wouldn't have been able to probably make this Muschamp hire if we'd made the playoffs. Would we still have done it? I don't know.
So that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, look, we are playing a bowl game, so we are technically playing longer, but no one even knows what the hell this bowl game's going to be. Like Michigan,
it's a spring game.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like a spring game because Michigan doesn't know what's going on there. They're doing all of their like audits of like how did Harbaugh create this culture of hell and then just leave? Like it's Harbaugh. Everyone's talking about like Sharon Moore. It's like these are all Harbaugh guys. Like he built this in strange, unaccountable culture.
Harbaugh is responsible for Sharon Moore picking up the butter knife.
Well, ultimately, I mean, you should know, but it's like not even that. It's the OC being a creepy weirdo, like the cheating scandal. Like these are all Harbaugh's guys, and 3 or 4 of them separately are now in like criminal investigations. So there's something going on there, and so Michigan's having to do that introspective, hire an outside firm thing. So who even knows?
Well, and here's the thing. So here's what's killing them for the job search. Everyone's already hired.
Exactly.
But also, because of what happened to Sharon Moore, the exact nature of it, if you're doing your search firm due diligence and you've got a coach who, let's just be honest, powerful men who make a lot of money, who are on a college campus a lot,
yeah,
they have access to some interesting stuff, right?
Right.
Any coach with even a hint of a rumor about that in their past is out.
Yeah.
And that's not the case in most coaching hires, right?
Right.
And I can tell you guys, I can't tell you the names, but there's some names that are out that would be good names for Michigan.
Yep.
And I just think they might have to go Biff Poggi for a year, man.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, I like a guy that's independently wealthy. That's like, I like football.
I like a guy who cuts the shirt sleeves off his shirt.
Well, he's also a legend. Like if you just look at a photo, but he doesn't have to coach a down of football, right? He's made all his money at that hedge fund or whatever his dad owned. So it's like he hasn't had to coach he's been a multimillionaire for years. He doesn't need to coach football. He likes football. So that's something that's interesting too, is that he's there for the love of the game. He could be hanging out on a beach the rest of his life. But this bowl game is going to be weird. I'm glad we get the practices, but I think you're right. I don't think the Muschamp move happens in a normal vacuum of, hey, it's playoffs, like real things matter. We cannot afford any losing of coaches before the playoffs. So I think ultimately it did benefit us. And we'll see if Sark makes some other moves that we would assume he would make. But he seems a lot more calculating and serious this go around. And I think that's going to be important if you want to get over the hump and actually win it.
I think a lot of stuff got his attention this year. And I don't want to relitigate all this stuff. I mean, we know we blew the offseason. That's obvious.
Yeah.
I think he knows that there's some correctives available. He's gotten a little complacent. Hey, everybody drink. The default setting for the University of Texas athletics is complacency. And unless you're actively creating tension and frankly, false tension.
Correct.
Then that kid that whole thing is going to be complacent.
That's what Saban did well.
Yes.
It was his guys would get hired, but he would just constantly it always felt like he could always create they don't believe in us. Texas, frankly, thought that their system is why they won. They forgot it's about NFL players. And so that was kind of in the offseason. And they're like, well, we just got this thing rolling. And that's not the case. So I think you're absolutely right. It was complacency this year. Look what we've done. And now they're going to have to bring in different minds in the coaching staff, different players, and build that tension.
Well, Colin Simmons summed it all up after watching the A&M and OU games. He just tweeted one word, all lowercase. Do you know what it was?
Pitiful.
And I think he didn't just mean the quality of play he saw. I think he meant our lost season opportunity. Like, this is pitiful. So while we're all laughing at the Schadenfreude, I hope our staff and players are absolutely seething.
Well, that should be the frustration. It shouldn't just be haha, OU and A&M lost. It should be we're better than these teams.
Yes,
we should have been there. So it's not enough to just make fun of them or act like it's okay we didn't make the playoffs because they lost. That's the frustrating part. Is look, it's a coin flip with the teams that are closer to us, and there's several teams we just flat out beat, and so it's going to be interesting. You cannot drop Florida or Ohio State. I'm not even going to do the Florida argument or Ohio State. And we just know that now, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the big key. But I think, that PK move, no one saw that coming. And so that was shocking because it was funny just to watch human beings in general. If you're on one side of anything, it was funny to see PK, and I'll give it to you because you've actually pointed out, like, with the PK stuff. But it was funny for no one to see it coming, and the next day the marching orders were already out. I'm like, well, with PK, I'm like, everyone shut up, man. None of y'all were saying that besides really Paul. But it's a brutal move, and I think it needed to be done. And for us, man, it's incredible analysis we get to do with that system and that defense. Because
dude, Sark just saved our offseason of content.
100%.
We got stuff queued up for here, for the lives, and for the deep dives. So y'all tune in.
Yeah. We're actually about to go shoot that deep dive. Y'all are going to see it on Christmas because y'all aren't going to make us work on Christmas. So y'all are going to get
it. Is Colin Simmons, strong safety, question mark.
Yeah, for sure. Well, something I did do that was interesting is a lot of this is, do we have the body types? So I went and pulled Georgia's 2023 roster. That was the last time that Muschamp was like super involved. And I looked at the heights and weights and then projections. We're actually pretty good there. Some of our issues are like, look, our big nose that we would like a Nazir Stackhouse. That's more of a Sharma, right? Like these guys are a little bit younger, and we will portal someone bigger. But we have these body types. Strong end, those guys can be like 260 in that scheme. Well, Lance Jackson's 250. Can we get them up? So it's like we actually do have some good proxies to the body types that I didn't know necessarily we would have.
If we alter some things in strength and conditioning, I think Alex January could be the big nose. We'll see. We got to see. And you know what?
January, yeah.
Muschamp's got a trained eye, and he's getting in here now. And he's going to go watch these guys. He's going to watch these guys practice. And he's going to have some opinions after that practice. And we need him because the portal opens up January 2nd.
Ian has his heart out for deep dive, so he's texting me that we need to wrap up the show. What's your least favorite thing about Ian, Paul?
Height.
Okay, yeah. That's what I would say. Chat, what do you guys not like about Ian before we wrap? And that would be just a really solid way to end it. Don't do that. Ian's a great guy.
He's also too emotionally volatile.
Yeah. He's too excitable, I would say. Yeah. That's the big problem with him.
He's excitable little guy.
Yeah. All right, guys. I want to see you over on Inside Texas. You can join for $1. That's where you can read Ian's work. And then we're going to go shoot deep dive. We appreciate you guys. Muschamp, a lot of good stuff coming your way. Everyone have a wonderful day. And more importantly, have a wonderful Christmas Eve. Later, y'all.